Welcome to Government Speak. This is where we'll cut through the government speak to get the information you need about county programs, services, and events straight from the source. Welcome to Government Speak, Contra Costa County's official podcast. The District Attorney's Office plays a key role in our justice system, but it's also one that many residents may not interact with directly. District Attorney Dinah Becton is the county's elected chief prosecutor and leads an office responsible for prosecuting criminal cases, supporting victims, and working with justice system and community partners to promote public safety and accountability. She brings decades of experience in public service, including prior service as a Superior Court judge, and has focused her work on transparency, victim-centered practices, and prevention-oriented approaches to public safety. Dinah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So for residents who might not interact with your office directly, how would you describe the role of the District Attorney's Office?
Well, at its core, the District Attorney's Office represents the people of Contra Costa County in the pursuit of justice. We review cases. We make charging decisions, we prosecute cases, we support victims throughout the process, and it's also important to know that our role goes way farther than prosecution. We're also part of a team, really, if you will, of promoting public safety. We are ensuring accountability and transparency in the criminal justice system as well. We're sort of like a gap between, or a bridge, I guess, between the community and our law enforcement and the courts and the victims and the community. So our job is to not just secure convictions, but it really is to seek justice in every single case.
So with that context, where does the DA's authority begin and where does it end within the broader justice system?
Well, in California, the district attorney is a constitutional officer. We are elected, of course, by the voters of Contra Costa County. Our authority is grounded in the Constitution, in state statutes, and they give us the responsibility, certainly, of prosecuting violations of state law that occur within our county. And so that means that when a crime is committed and it's investigated by our law enforcement partners, it will be submitted to our office, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute. We have the legal authority and the obligation to independently review those cases and also decide whether charges should be filed.
So that kind of leads us into what does a day look like in the district attorney's office? For your team, they're pursuing cases and justice in many different ways, I imagine.
So on a day-to-day basis, the attorneys, we're in a lot of different places. And just as a reminder, our team is made up of more than attorneys. We have a staff of about 250. It's made up of attorneys. We have our investigative team, which are sworn peace officers. We also have our victim advocates who are working directly with victims at this difficult time in their lives. And then we also have a whole team of administrative staff. And so on a day-to-day basis, we might be reviewing cases, we're appearing in court on cases, meeting with victims, meeting with witnesses. Our investigative team is working closely with law enforcement to develop leads on cases. We are working on all kinds of cases, if you will, including, it just runs the gamut. I don't even want to try to get into it, but one of the things that surprises people is that we actually do environmental work in addition to, say, for example, criminal cases. So we're also, on a day-to-day basis, participating in prevention and education in our community. So we have a lot of outreach. We are in the schools. We are talking to parents and civic groups all the time and making sure that people are aware of things like human trafficking, making sure there's awareness around internet crimes against children and how people can keep their kids safe on the internet, topics like gun safety. So there's all kinds of topics that we are involved in. So it's not only prosecution, but it is also prevention and education within our communities.
As part of those prevention and education efforts, you had mentioned human trafficking in our community, and it's something I think people might not necessarily know that that's happening in our backyard.
Yes.
What is the district attorney's office doing on that front to try and educate folks of, what are some of the signs that people can look for? And if they see those signs, how do they report them?
Mm-hmm. So, a great question. Lots of different work that's going on. First of all, Contra Costa County has developed an alliance. So we are working with, in a network essentially, of a number of agencies in our county that help support our efforts in human trafficking. And just as a reminder, human trafficking is more than just sex crimes. It is also labor trafficking. And so we work with our labor partners as well to help us develop cases. So we are always, we have a very victim-centered approach to human trafficking in our county. We want to make sure that we get services to people who need them and give them some alternatives to the lifestyle that they might be involved in. We want to make sure people understand that it can come in all forms and shapes and can look a lot of different ways. And so if you see something that looks suspicious, there is a hotline. It's right there on our website that people can call and report. And then we have investigators, as I mentioned, who will follow up and help to develop those leads.
So how do cases come to your office, and how do your teams reach a determination that there's going to be a decision to proceed in a case?
Well, in Contra Costa County, first of all, we work with 25 law enforcement agencies in 19 different cities, and then we're also working with state and federal partners as well. But on a day-to-day basis, our law enforcement partners are the first responders, if you will. So they are the ones who respond to incidents of crime in our community. They investigate the case, and when they think they have a case that we should take a look at, they bring it in and submit it to our office with a request for review. Attorneys are then reviewing those cases. Of course, our professional team has already done all of the work to get it into our system, et cetera. And they are reviewing those cases to determine whether there is sufficient evidence to prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt. They're also looking at whether or not filing that case is in the interest of justice and whether there are other alternatives, as I'm sure we'll talk about, that are all part of the picture of public safety, but don't necessarily always involve the prosecution of cases.
Let's talk about that. You talked about all of the different law enforcement partners who your teams are coordinating with and collaborating with every day. How does your office work with law enforcement and the courts and community partners? What does that look like?
Sure. So, public safety really is a collaborative effort in Contra Costa County. And so we work closely with all of the police departments, the sheriff's office, probation, the public defender's office, the courts, other county departments, especially like even our health department as well, and employment and human services. One example would be our underserved and unserved survivor program. We received some funding so that we are able to provide victim services to those who might have been victimized by gun violence in our communities, but the cases are unsolved, so they're not getting the normal support that they should have. So with the partnership among all of those departments that I talked about, we have now embedded our advocates in the family justice centers in our communities so that people have a direct access to those services. We also participate in a multi-agency task force, which is actually a standalone task force that the DA's office leads. It's made up of a lot of our law enforcement partners that I just mentioned, and we are looking at violent crime and gangs and organized retail theft throughout the entire county. So there's lots of ways that we all work together to promote public safety here in Contra Costa County.
I know sometimes the headlines will drive community discussion. So you've got copper thefts. We've heard about those recently. Yes. We've heard about retail thefts, which you just kind of touched on. What public safety concerns are you hearing most about from residents?
When I'm in the community, I think a couple of things are really driving the conversations around safety right now. And you certainly mentioned organized retail theft. And that's one that is on a lot of minds. And part of it is driven just by the fact that we have so much that is on social media right now. And so even when something doesn't happen here in our county or even in our state, if we see it, we will have a tendency to feel unsafe and feel that it just happened right here next door to us. And so certainly retail theft is on a lot of minds, and it's definitely a place that we've done a lot of work. We've established a vertical unit, and that unit will concentrate. We have attorneys and investigators and other staff who will be concentrating specifically on organized retail theft, working with our law enforcement partners in the county. So that's an area that has really kind of blossomed in recent years. And we don't just work within our county. As I mentioned, we have state partners as well. And we also know that things like human trafficking and gun violence and organized retail theft, which are some of the other topics, also travel from county to county. So we work with other counties as well to help solve crime in California, really.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about a lot of the kind of the prevention and outreach efforts that the district attorney's office is doing on a day-to-day basis. How does prevention fit into the mission of the DA's office?
Well, knowledge is power, right? And so prevention is a very powerful tool to keep people away from getting involved in crime. One example of that, we were working with a task force in a certain part of our county that was having a lot of problems with human trafficking. And we learned that some of our teenage girls on the way to school were actually encountering those who were trying to encourage them into that organized ring. And so one of the things that we did was we partnered with one of our law enforcement partners and took the message directly into the schools. So our prosecutors and investigators and other law enforcement partners went directly into the schools to talk to young people about what it might look like to be propositioned by someone, and to what signs to look for, who to tell if something happens, and really how to protect themselves in those situations. And so it's really surprising to know that the district attorney's office is involved in so many efforts around prevention and also education within our communities.
Yeah, it's not really the kind of that Perry Mason or Matlock depiction on TV.
Not every day, not every day. And, public safety is not a static thing. So we have to evolve, and we have to use different tools in our toolbox to get us to that place of public safety.
So how do you get interested into this type of work? How did you start? Did you wake up one day and say, I want to be a county district attorney?
Not exactly. But I tell you, even as a child, growing up in a time when there were so many different movements, the civil rights movement, the women's movement, Vietnam War, all of this stuff was happening in real time. And one of the things that I did see is that lawyers were really instrumental in effectuating change. And I wanted to be like that as part of serving our community. So I've had lots of different twists and turns in my career, been involved in city government level with nonprofits, working also in housing and community development, working with developers, nonprofit housing, all kinds of things. And then I became a judge, and of course I had a private practice. Before that, I became a judge. I served for 22 years here in the county as a judge, elected as presiding judge. And really and truly, when the opportunity came for there to be a change in the district attorney's office, it was really the people of Contra, Costa County who encouraged me to be involved in that process. And rest is history.
When we talk about kind of what the community looks like over the next 5 years, what are some of the challenges or opportunities that you anticipate your office might encounter in those next 5 years?
I would say that one of the things we know that it's going to be so important to not only drive our internal decision making, but also to have an opportunity for greater transparency with our community, which is what people are asking for, is to make sure that we're using data. And not only using it, but using it in a way that allows us to inform the public about the work that we're doing, but also using it internally as we develop new programs and make decisions about how to prioritize work within the district attorney's office. So I would say that going forward, of course, accountability to our community is always important. Transparency and building trust is of utmost importance, but a big tool for us is going to be the use of data. You should be looking for dashboards to come up pretty soon from the district attorney's office so that people can go right to our website and get answers about the work that we're doing and the many, many areas that we're involved in our community.
There's nothing like a good dashboard. It helps kind of data-informed decision making.
Yes.
So you prioritize resources.
It helps tell the story.
Yeah.
Yes.
You talked a little bit about this in terms of the partnerships that your office works with communities and other law enforcement agencies. And you also talked about some of the prevention efforts about being in schools to try and equip kids and others with the information needed to observe, make observations, have situational awareness, and then actually report if something is happening. What kind of diversion or alternative programs are currently part of your approach to public safety?
Sure. Well, we started our journey with our youth in 2019. So we have what's called our Restore program. It is a program that gives our youth who might become involved in the criminal justice system an opportunity to have an assessment so that their needs are met on this journey. It is victim-centered, so we have victim participation, and the young person can also understand the harm that they have caused to others in our community. It's an interesting way that we go about this particular program. The cases are actually reviewed by our office, but then we also work with a nonprofit in the community that handles the work of giving the youth the assessment and getting the tools that they need to be whole and successful within our society, and at the same time also working towards accountability for them. And so it has been successful. From that, we built our adult program, the Neighborhood Restorative Partnership, and that one I can't brag enough about. It is for low-level nonviolent adult crimes. We have people in our community, everyday folks, who come and sign up to be a part of that. They are trained in restorative justice practices and sit in panels of 3 to hear cases from their own community and decide. They hear from the victims. They get an opportunity to decide what holds this individual accountable and make sure that they understand the harms that they have caused others. We have had now about 250 graduates, a little over that now, and we've only had one case of recidivism. That means a time when the person graduated from our program and committed a new crime, only one person. And so we know that on this pathway towards community safety, that has been a very successful program for us.
So that's a great example of kind of answering what's the benefit of working to keep people from entering the system in the first place.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about the programs that are alternatives or keep people from entering the system in the first place. How do those support long-term safety and reduce repeat harm?
Well, I think research consistently shows that well-designed diversion programs, especially for lower-level nonviolent offenses, can be very effective in reducing future harm. I mentioned some of the components, of course, holding individuals accountable, but also getting them the resources and the help that they need so that they don't come back. Helping people to get into mental health, helping people to get drug treatment when they need it, and also helping our youth with better decision making. Those are all things that are going to change the way they show up in the world, and then also help them to stay away from crime and eventually lead us all towards safer communities.
With the kind of the introduction of artificial intelligence and generative AI in terms of creating content. There are ways in which local governments are using AI to be more efficient, to make services more accessible. How is your office embracing AI, and what are you seeing out in the community in terms of potential crimes or victims in the community as a result of AI?
Well, we have to embrace AI because AI is everywhere. And for our staff, especially our attorneys, we have to make sure that we have proper training in place so that we're using it responsibly and in a way that doesn't run afoul of the law. So that's one part. We also work with our law enforcement agencies because they are also using AI. Report writing is an area that they're venturing into as a significant help and time slaver. And so we need to work with them as well, make sure they're doing things in a responsible way. And then in terms of crimes in our community, we have a task force. Our investigative team works closely with the task force. Internet crimes against children is something that you've probably seen in the news recently, and we've been very successful in solving those cases as well. It is really important for us to be involved in that work because we have individuals who are exploiting some of the most vulnerable members of our society, and that's our children. And we want to make sure that we are in position when they're using the tools on the internet and using tools with AI to make sure that we are in the room when it comes to investigating those cases and apprehending those who are committing harm in that way.
If there's one takeaway from our discussion today, what would you want people to remember the most?
I would want people to remember that, first of all, the District Attorney's Office exists to serve the people of Contra Costa County, and that our work is grounded in public safety, in fairness, accountability, and transparency. Justice doesn't happen just in the courtroom. It is about how we protect our communities, how we support victims, and how we hold people accountable. And so all of those areas are of utmost importance to me and to the District Attorney's Office.
Well, that's it for today's show, D.A.
Thank
Becton.
you.
Thank you for being on. I'm your host, Christy Jordan, Contra Costa County's Public Information Officer. Thanks for joining us on the Government Speak podcast, brought to you by the Office of Communications and Media. But don't just take our word for it. Stay curious, stay connected, and stay informed. Until next time, keep your mind open and your facts straight.